Hi everyone, today's video is about decorating cookies for cookie bouquets. You're going to see me do two different bouquets, one for a mechanic and one for a podiatrist. You'll see me do some cars, some wheels, some feet, and even a syringe. And so if you watch, you'll see that there are skewers baked into each cookie, and that's what we're going to use to support in our bouquets later on. So enjoy! Here you see me piping on the borders and then going back and filling it in with the same color. The consistency of the icing makes a big difference here. So on the outlining part, the borders, you want it to be a little thicker so that it holds its shape, but soft enough that it flows easily from your piping bag. And then when you go back to flood the cookies like I'm doing now, you want it a little bit thinner, and you just thin it out by adding a little bit of water. And you can move it around with a tool like I'm using here, or I've even seen people move it around with the end of a spoon or just anything you have handy in the kitchen. Here I am showing you the consistency of the icing that I'm going to be using for the borders. So it's a little thick, it takes a little bit to fall down off that spatula, but still soft. And then shortly I'll show you the consistency of the flooding icing that I made right here. See, it's thinner, it's more like honey. That's kind of what you're looking for to go back into your flooding, is what it's called when you fill it in like that. And it has a nice glossy finish to it, but it stays in place. I have a really bad habit of putting too much of the flooding icing on and it spills over the edge, so be careful not to do that. But if it does happen, you can scrape it off the edge while it's still soft before it hardens up. Here I am adding the details to the foot-shaped cookie, and I'm using the same consistency of icing that I used to pipe those outlines on the borders, and I'm just kind of going back and accenting where I think it needs lines. The same thing here on the syringe. I'm using that same thicker icing to pipe my black details onto the white cookie. But you want to make sure that your flooding icing, the background color, so in this case white, is completely dry before you add those accents so that the colors don't bleed together. That usually takes a few hours for it to set up completely. Here you see me drawing on the wheels and tires to these little cars, and I'm using that same thick icing again to do all my borders and to outline the car and add a few little details. These are a really basic car shape, nothing too fancy, but you do want to let that black outline set up a little bit if you're going to go back and add any color to your windows or headlights, so that you don't have that leaking over the edge with the softer icing. Now I'm going to go back and add in a little bit of white for my windows, and it is that thinner consistency that you would use for flooding, but I'm putting a very small amount in each window so that it doesn't spill over that black, because I used a very small opening on my piping bag for the black because I didn't want anything too bulky on those black lines. So you'll see me just put a little bit of the white icing and then go back with, that's actually a cake tester, and I'm just using that to move the icing around. And I have let that black outline dry for about 30 minutes before I added this white detailing on. Now you see me filling in my tires on the car, and again I'm using that thinner consistency of the flooding icing and moving it around with my cake tester. Nothing fancy on these cars, just a really simple design. Here's the finished product. These are stuck down inside some styrofoam inside those containers with the shred on top, and then later on I added some shrink wrap around them with a bow on top to make them look more like a gift. So thanks for watching everyone, and check out my description box at the end of the video for my royal icing recipe.